I want to welcome everybody to the Greater Watertown North Country Chamber of Commerce's Economic Forum. We're very glad you could join us for this very important conversation today. We're going to take a closer look at one of the most complex and, of course, urgent challenges that faces our region, and that is homelessness here in Jefferson County. Chamber's Economic Forum series was created to bring business, government, and, of course, community leaders together to sorry, lost my place already. This is not my first time reading, I swear to God. To move our region forward. Each session that we've had here focuses on different kind of issues that impacts, of course, the North Country's economic health and our quality of life. In the past, we have explored topics like childcare, we've explored workforce development, housing affordability, we've done taxes, there have been talks on tariffs, financial trends, and now we're going to add another layer to that, today's topic, one that calls for a lot of understanding and collaboration getting together. We're grateful to have a lot of partners, organizations, and of course our local leaders represented here this morning. Your presence demonstrates a shared commitment to making Jefferson County a stronger and more resilient community. I want to acknowledge our sponsors today, presenting sponsors, Jefferson County Economic Development, of course, and Jefferson County, of course. Major sponsors, Empire Facility Management, and a thanks to Knowlton Technologies as well. Supporting sponsors, Jefferson Concrete, and a thanks to Watertown Savings Bank as well. Thank you to all our sponsors. My name is Les Shockley. I'll be moderating this event to the best of my ability. We are joined, of course, this morning, as always, by our panelists over here, Jillian Redder. We have Crystal Sutton with us. We have Josh Morales and Josh Sable on our panel today, and we're glad to have them. We're going to begin with a few opening remarks from our Chamber President and CEO, Kayla Jamison. Then we're going to move into the presentation with this great panel of local experts who are actively engaged in addressing this important issue today. Following this panel, there's going to be time for your questions, and we'll have some comments as well, so keep those thoughts in mind as the discussion goes on this morning. Write some stuff down if you have to. Thanks again for joining us for this meaningful dialogue, and join me in welcoming Kayla Jamison. We'll just pass this off to
If you ever need mics, Tim Sweeney's really good at it. It's good backup. I should have got you a teleprompter less, but okay. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for being here this morning. Of course, we are coming together to talk about an issue that is prevalent in all of our lives that we can see out in the community, in homelessness. And whether you're a service provider on the front lines, a landlord navigating housing barriers, an employer seeing the impact of instability in your workforce, or a neighbor concerned about those living without shelter, homelessness is not an isolated issue. It's not just a Jefferson County issue either. It's really an economic issue, workforce, housing, and above all, a community issue. So this morning we will hear from an esteemed panel who are actively addressing homelessness every single day. They represent organizations that face these challenges head on while seeking long-term solutions. And just looking around the room, many of you in here are addressing those concerns as well. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. As we listen, I encourage you to think about your role here in the broader picture. Each of us in our own sector touches some part of this system. Maybe it's through those workforce programs, that housing development, mental health services, or simply by connecting somebody to a resource. When we start to see how these efforts align, we begin to uncover new pathways for progress. After the panel discussion, we will open the floor for questions and conversations, and I'll go around with a microphone so you actually have a chance to project that question here. We do have this event being live streamed with NBC Watertown, and it will be available for recording later if anybody would like to reference this. So let's use this space to learn from one another, to share challenges and successes, and to identify opportunities for partnership. This path forward will require coordination, compassion, and creativity. Again, homelessness does not just have a single solution, but together we can move closer to stability for every resident in Jefferson County. So again, thank you for being part of this really important dialogue, and I will pass the mic back to Les.
Yep. All right, I'm going to just quickly introduce all of our panelists here and give them a proper introduction. We're going to begin with Jillian Redder. She's the Director of Housing and Special Initiatives with the Jefferson County Department of Social Services. Jillian's a Watertown native, 20 years of experience in the human service field, working with or on behalf of diverse and vulnerable populations, ranging from substance abuse and mental health to intellectual, developmental disabilities to, of course, homelessness. Currently, Jillian is serving as Jefferson County's Director of Housing and Special Initiatives, leading county initiatives, collaborating with community providers, city leaders, and other partners to implement impactful solutions to homelessness within our community. It's good to have you here, Jillian. Up next, we have Crystal Sutton. Crystal Sutton is a Principal Social Welfare Examiner at Jefferson County Department of Social Services with over 4 years of supervisory experience overseeing the Homeless Temporary Housing Division, guiding a team that's committed to improving housing stability, community coordination, and assisting individuals in finding adequate, affordable, permanent housing. Crystal's been with JCDSS for 16 years now, working in various financial programs, including temporary assistance. She's worked with SNAP, Medicaid, and HEAP as well. It's good to have you here, Crystal. Up next, well, it's a little out of order, so like we want to skip over. We'll talk about Josh. They're both Josh, so this could be confusing too. We'll talk about Captain Josh Morales with the Salvation Army of Watertown. Captain Morales has been an officer for the Salvation Army for 11 years now. Has been working with Salvation Army of Watertown since June of last year in 2024. In his role, he's had experience working with homelessness on numerous fronts, from serving on a street team in rural Ohio to leading anti-human trafficking efforts in inner city Cincinnati. Here in Watertown, he operates the overnight emergency center that we have and different daytime services to address the needs of those in this community. It's really good to have you here, sir. And at the end there, we have Joshua Sable. Joshua Sable is the Director of Independent Living with Northern Regional Center for Independent Living. Josh has been working in the human service field since his graduation from Brockport back in 2005, majoring in sociology. Joshua has held a number of positions over the years, ranging from case management to his current position as Director of Independent Living at NERCL. We all know it as. Josh has been working with the staff at NERCL on addressing the homelessness issue since it first became visible in the county several years ago. Joshua currently oversees the street outreach program at NERCL, and that started back in December of 2024. So it is very good to have you here as well, sir. Good to have all our panelists here today. I'm going to turn it over to our panelists, and we'll begin their discussion. So I'll bring up and introduce Ms. Jillian Redder. Come on up.
Good morning. Thank you for the introductions. I want to echo that this is an important topic. It is something that is being talked about in many capacities. Our goal, I think, between the four of us today is to bring some more awareness of the things that are going on behind the scenes, to address some of the things that we as community members feel either through our professional roles or our personal roles, because it does impact both. And bringing some awareness to the things that are going on, the people who are really honed in on that, can go a long way. So also provide contacts and places to reach out to if you have questions down the road. So you can go to the next one, give you a brief outline here of what this presentation is going to entail. Give you a brief background of sort of how we got here. So I'm going to travel you back in time a little bit. Some of the things that we're seeing, how we got to where we are present day, and then solutions that are in place and things that we're hoping to continue to move forward as time goes on. Yeah, it's kind of in my face. So we're going to go back to about the fall of 2021 briefly, just to bring you guys, anybody up to speed who may not already be aware. Back in fall of 2021, our community came together, bringing multiple providers and leaders from different places to one table, forming a steering committee. At that time, we saw a large increase in spike in homelessness. It really became visible within our community. And so they said, well, we need to put our heads together and take a look at this. But we also need to fully understand what we're working with. And so they did some resource mapping. What do we currently have within our community to address some of these things? Can they be pivoted to encompass some of these things? What is our community lacking? And so that committee concluded after about 18 months or so, and 3 recommendations came out of that. One of which was the development of my current position as the Director of Housing and Special Initiatives. The county felt that there should be a position that is really focused on just these issues, and that could move things forward. So I do appreciate that. The second recommendation that came out of that was the development of some sort of mechanism that would position the county in a place to actively respond to situations where large numbers of people were displaced, in events where, you know, the Red Cross may not be able to step into those types of things. So at that time, we were also seeing a huge decrease in the number of units that our community had to utilize for getting people housed and off of the street. And we lost the Rainbow Motel, we lost the HODIS, and all in all, there was just under 100 different units that we lost in a relatively short period of time. And that's a huge number for a rural small community like ours. And so that mechanism that we came up with was, and through those experiences, they said, we need something that we have these things on hand that we can be prepared for at one time. And so we've developed and purchased a trailer that is packed full of supplies. So in the event that something tragic like that does happen again, we're in a better position to be able to respond, and respond efficiently and effectively to address those things. That was a learning process for me. Never bought a trailer before, and it is a lot of work. The third recommendation that came out of that committee was looking at low barrier shelter options for our community. And so when I came on board in 2023 into this position, they said, here's your recommendation, go do it. I said, oh. We had a large number of meetings after coming on board. We really looked at the different types of shelter options that are out there. You know, your traditional brick and mortar homeless shelter options, some more innovative solutions that we're seeing other states and other communities utilizing. And ultimately, it was decided we need to sort of pivot from that. Our community wasn't really in a position where a true homeless shelter was a great fit for the needs that we have, so we pivoted, as we do with a lot of things. So that is how we got to where we are today in terms of the solutions that we're working on. We wanted to make sure we had low barrier options. The committee did determine we don't really have that. We have options for people, you know, through the Department of Social Services, but those do come with stipulations that this particular population isn't always able to meet that. And so their eligibility is not there anymore, or they're not willing to come in, or there's a stigma associated with it. So what other things can our community put into place? And that's where we've continued to build our relationships with our partners that we have at the table as well. So I'll get into a little bit how we kind of got here. You can go to the next slide. There's a lot of contributing factors that go into this. We've got some, you know, state and national trends, increase in housing costs. We have state policy decisions that tie into these things. And then, of course, I had mentioned a little bit ago, loss or lack of adequate housing. And I don't necessarily always mean just in amount of housing, but the type of housing, because that matters. We can go to the next one. Sometimes it's reassuring to know you're not alone, but not necessarily in this particular topic. But nonetheless, we are not alone as a community and as a county in terms of homelessness. We have seen across the United States homelessness being at an all-time high. And New York is certainly no different. And in fact, New York State is at an all-time high and outpacing the rest of the nation. We are trending, we've seen trending in that going up between 22 and 24. We've seen a drastic increase in the number of people experiencing housing instability within our community. Just for our Tri-County area, there's a 54% increase in homelessness in that 2-year span. A little bit more perspective on that when we are looking at the cost of emergency housing. So those are costs that come directly out of the County Department of Social Services when we place somebody into a hotel or motel. In all of 21, the cost of emergency housing was at $413,000, and then in just half of 22, it was at $730,000. So in just a short period of time, it grew drastically. And so we took a look and we said, well, what occurred at that time frame that it jumped so drastically? And I think I have on the next slide a little visual. That orange line that you see, that is New York State increase in homelessness over time. That blue line is the rest of the nation. You look where it spikes, that is in 22. A couple important things happened at that time that have contributed to some of that. There was the migrant crisis and the end of the COVID-19 eviction moratorium. When those two things occurred in that relatively short period of time, that increased that homelessness at that point in time. So contributing factors, looking at the timeline and how those things lined up. Another factor that ties directly into a person's housing instability is the affordability of housing. I won't get too far into the weeds with this because it can be a topic in and of itself, but I wanted to provide a little bit of context and an example for people. So when we're talking about housing cost burden, we're talking about the expenses that a household has to contribute toward their housing expenses, so a rent, a mortgage, utility costs, things like that. Housing is considered affordable when no more than 30% of your income is going toward those types of expenses. An example of what we're seeing in a large population within our community right now, a 2-person household who's earning about 30% of our area median income is bringing in about $22,000 annually. So this is somebody who's potentially on a fixed income, or they're receiving maybe temporary assistance as their level of income. They're renting a 2-bedroom apartment at fair market rent, and annually that cost is $16,000. So when you do the math on that, their housing costs are nearly 80% of their income. That's not affordable. A lot of times people are then left to choose, do I pay my rent this month? Do I pay my mortgage? Do I pay my heat bill? Do I pay my child care expenses if those are applicable? Do I not work and stay home with the kids because child care is expensive? So people are having to choose a lot of times between what bills get paid and what doesn't get paid. And then briefly chat about a couple of the policy decisions that have happened throughout New York State that have potentially impacted some of the rise in homelessness. Criminal justice reforms that have occurred over the last few years, and then closures of mental health institutions. That's more of a long-term trend that has really started, we've seen that since about 2014 or so. We'll go to the next one. These next couple slides will give you a little bit of visuals I feel are helpful. This one here is looking at the decrease in number of incarcerations over time. And so you do see that it is decreasing. One great thing about the jails and prisons is they have been able to embed behavioral health services right into them. And at one point, if an individual was arrested, they were taken to jail and they remained there until they were arraigned. And behavioral health screenings were part of that intake process when going into jail. And if it was indicated that behavioral health services were necessary, the referral was made and that connection was made. And they were often engaged right there in jail until arraignment and possible release at that time. But what that allowed them to do is get engaged right off the bat and begin those services right then and there. We've seen a shift in that. People are arraigned quickly, or they're arrested, or they're ticketed for various things, and they're not going into that jail setting and getting that immediate connection. The state has changed that policy, so we're not using the jails and the prisons as a treatment facility, and that's the mindset behind that. Next slide. This one is just showing a decrease in the long-term hospital mental psychiatric beds throughout New York State. And again, this has been more of a long-term trend since about 2014. Some of the data down here at the bottom is showing you that New York State has lost about 990 dedicated beds since 2014 or so. 75% of those total beds lost were from New York psychiatric centers. So those are the long-term institutional stays. We have seen a slight increase in our community within our inpatient bed capacity, so places at Samaritan, things of that nature. But really, those are treating the symptomology that is occurring right then. It is short-term. They're doing psychiatric stabilization, not long-term treatment. And so once they've got them stabilized, they are discharged back out. Referrals still can be done to these few existing beds throughout the state, but the wait lists are long. And so they have to look at other avenues for potential long-term treatment. The issue that we run into is we sort of create this bottleneck system now. People are being discharged, but it's long waits to get into places, whether it's a psychiatric institution or another supportive housing type of placement. This next slide was created by our county administrator, Ryan. And I actually do enjoy it because it is a great visual of where we've sort of had to shift due to those contributing factors that we've seen over time. So we look at this, and we're on this road to homelessness. And a couple examples that particular population experiences is there's a prevalence of mental instability and addiction. Those aren't the only contributing factors. We have recently seen an increase in the number of families who are homeless because they just can't afford their housing. Those numbers are increasing, and Crystal will provide some of the statistics a little bit later on that. But many contributing things that lead us to homelessness. And there used to be an off-ramp. There used to be a place where we could compel change in that particular population. Through court orders, our criminal justice system was designed for that. That road, through policy decisions, has closed. And so we have to create this new off-ramp. And how do we do that? Well, we have to influence change. We have to put supports behind people. And we have to create systems that are going to be, that they can latch onto once they're ready to do so, and be there to pick up those pieces in the best way we can. So we've got supportive housing. We're building trust through street outreach efforts. We've got safe shelter options through our warming and cooling centers. And so these are just a few of the ways that we're building that new off-ramp for people. And before I hand it over, I'm just going to remind people, when we are talking about homelessness as a community, it's usually typically about the homelessness that we're seeing that are on the street, that are in front of your businesses, that are in front of your homes, that are down in public square, or the things that you see that they're under the bridges, they're in parking garages. But homelessness doesn't include just that particular population. We're also looking at people who are couch surfing, who don't have a permanent place of their own. They're temporarily jumping between family and friends' houses, whoever's going to be able to let them stay. We're talking about people who are fleeing or attempting to flee a domestic violence situation. And then, of course, we've got the individuals who are living in hotels or motels. whether it's paid for or placed through the department, or they're paying for that on their own because they can't afford to get into their own apartment. They're having to live at a hotel or motel. And then I think, yeah, you can go to the next slide. What can we do about it? I mentioned a couple things that we can do about it. One thing that the county has invested in is developing a data dashboard so that we can better measure our depth of homelessness within the county, so that we can better manage it. And manage could mean a vast array of things. It's going to allow us to be able to look at that particular population, what they're utilizing, the number of people that we have who are homeless, what services they're engaged with. If something doesn't seem to be working, we can pivot. But we can't do that without having a good measurement for it. So the county has invested in this data dashboard, as we're referring to it. And at this point, and the intention is for it to grow, the programs that we're looking at are the warming cooling centers, are 2 dedicated street outreach teams, and our emergency housing. Right now, we're able to pull that information in and look at unique clients within there who are utilizing those various systems. It's going to give us a better number of how many people in our community are homeless and utilizing those systems. We want to be able to continue to grow that, and so we're working with that developer currently as we move forward. So as of, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we spoke with the Health and Human Service Committee, and we sort of gave them a first glimpse at what that dashboard looks like. And it's lines and bar graphs, and it shows you a person's sort of journey through homelessness. It also gives you their exits, where they're exiting homelessness to. Hopefully it is a permanent housing situation, but sometimes it's a temporary housing situation, and that's okay. That's just the first step that particular individual needed. Go back real quick. Oh yeah, so providing supportive program options is what we're really looking to do. That's why we've continued to build and enhance the relationships with our partners that we have. And then of course, get to work increasing the supply of adequate types of housing for our community and meeting those needs. I talked about collecting better data and what that looks like, giving us better ways to target some interventions that might be needed. Okay. And so really the best way to engage this particular population with the barriers and the challenges that they have is through some boots on the ground efforts. So last year, New York State put out an RFP for the Solutions to End Homelessness program. We applied for that grant under 3 components, and we were awarded that grant. It is a 3-year grant cycle. One of the components that we wrote into that was a dedicated street outreach team. We are fortunate to be able to have that. It is not something that our community had in a capacity that was dedicated for these efforts specifically. Do we have organizations that are going out there engaging with people on the street? We absolutely do. But this program allows that dedication toward this homeless population. We have, I keep hitting that. We have partnered with NERCL to oversee that street outreach team and implement that program. We are also fortunate to, through a funding through the Jefferson County Community Services Department, also contract another dedicated street outreach team through ACR Health. We're fortunate that these partners are willing to step up and take on that role and responsibility. They're certainly familiar with this particular population. They work with them day in and day out, and now they have that dedicated program to be able to work with them in this capacity as well. And so the overall goal of a street outreach team at the end of the day is to connect people to the services and supports, and then foster increased self-efficiency to the extent possible. And so it's not just a street outreach staff going out and engaging with somebody to bring them into a housing situation. We would love that to be the case, but it doesn't always work as seamlessly and smoothly as that. Sometimes it's as simple as getting them connected with medical care, behavioral health care. Sometimes it's as simple as making sure that they have a place to sleep. They're referring people or taking people to our warming and cooling centers to get off the streets, get a hot meal, and have a safe place to stay. They're building a relationship. And what we see is that the more we build that relationship, the more interactions they have, the more we can influence that change for that person, and then they're willing to engage in additional services and supports, which ultimately can lead to becoming housed. So I think at this point we can hand it to Josh. Josh is going to give you a little ins and outs of what it looks like in street outreach.
Good morning. So I oversee the street outreach at NERCL. We have
Butter.
we have 2 full-time staff that are dedicated to this program, and they are out in the community daily meeting with the homeless population. They're meeting with them at the warming shelters, the library, out on the streets, wherever they may be. So whatever reason these people want, they will engage with them. I'm sorry, I'm not a great public speaker, so, but what they're doing is looking to build relationships. They're looking to gain their trust, meet with them as many times as they need to, so they will engage with them and work with them. They will then connect them to resources in the community, excuse me, Salvation Army, Emmanuel, New Life, whether it's mental health services, substance abuse services, education, employment, whoever they need to get in touch with, they will connect them with them. Getting them off the street, they will connect them with SPOA, with coordinated entry, just helping advocate to get housing for them, if that's as simple as it may be. They're meeting with them in parking garages, overpasses, encampments, in the woods, in the community. We don't like to send them into abandoned buildings for safety reasons. Sometimes if we have to go there, we will send them with the police, but a lot of times we don't send them into abandoned buildings. Some of the challenges that are faced, we can go to the next slide, is they are a transient population. They don't stick around for a lot of the time. So they may meet with them once, and then they may not see them again, or they may see them again. Thank you very much. They may see them again a month later and engage them, and then try to build that trust and relationship with them. So they're going to continue to build that relationship as long as they have that opportunity. The main thing they're looking for is to get them engaged in services so they can get housed, turn things around, get in a better situation. So some more challenges. There's unpredictable situations that they encounter. We always have 2 staff. They won't go out by themselves, they'll go out in pairs. So just for safety purposes. A lot of times the individuals are looking for immediate results, and unfortunately that's not how it works. We try to get them the help or set them up with the services as as quick as possible, but they'll meet with them and then they'll want to be housed, the next day, and it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. We wish it did. So a lot of times they will not continue to engage if they don't see the results happening quick enough. And there is a lot of steps involved at times. Some of the positive impacts that we see is getting them engaged in services, getting them housed, getting them off the streets, then also getting the data so we can understand the problem and address it, see what we need to do to address it to, hopefully get things into a better place. So, some of the data that we have engaged 94 households. At this point, it says we have 15 discharged to housing. We actually, as of yesterday, we had 2 more, so we have 17 individuals that we have housed since we started this program in December. We have 198 combined encounters. So average, we meet with the people 13 times. That's average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, from the initial engagement until we discharge them from the program. So.
Are we back on? We're back on. So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the some of the things that Josh mentioned about the street outreach team and really draw some attention to the significance of some of the data. So he talked about the 94 households that have been engaged in their street outreach services since they began in middle of December, and 17 households who have discharged to housing. It seems like there's a big gap there. And there is, but I think that speaks volumes as to the work that goes into getting somebody to engage in those services. But they've continued to do it, and they've successfully assisted 17 households with getting off of the street and into housing. And so that isn't a bad number. It just shows the magnitude and the importance of a program like this. Those interactions don't occur without those dedicated teams out there doing that. And then he talked about the encounters. So that 198 combined encounters is among those 94 households. So I think the highest number, visual memory at this point off of my data sheet, the highest number of engagements that we saw out of those 94 households, it took 34 encounters for one particular individual before he was successfully housed. The lowest, 1 encounter. And so it's important to understand the range of individuals and the unique needs that we're seeing among this particular population. I have the fortunate job of seeing the encounter information that comes through. Each of the encounters are documented, and they're indicating on there, they're writing a small progress note about what that interaction looked like. And so we do see people say, I'm not interested, or I don't want to talk about housing today, or I have a job interview, or my job interview went well. I got hired at FedEx. I got hired at this place. Those are real impacts that are being happened that we don't always see in the data, but the context behind that data is an important piece. So I think it's important to make people aware of that as well. They're doing a lot of great things, as well as the ACR street outreach team. They did not, their program did not get up and running until tail end of August, so they're just in the beginning stages of getting data collected and whatnot, but both of those street outreach teams, I have all confidence that they're going to be mirroring each other in terms of data and outcomes. And then the next slide. And so these street outreach teams, they're the boots on the ground. They're looking out into the community for those street homeless. And so what are some options for them? And we've, since 21 or 22, we've been working with the Salvation Army for a warming center that operates an overnight. That has typically only been done throughout the winter. And then this past spring, our county took a look at that and we said, well, what if we kept these services open year-round? And that includes Emmanuel Congregational Church and New Life. New Life. No, that is not right. New Life Christian Church should be up there. We want to keep these places open year-round. Is that going to make a difference? Really, the thought behind that was we build a lot of momentum and we build relationships for 6 months throughout the winter with these folks. But then at the end of May, when they close down, we lose that engagement, we lose that momentum, and it's almost like you start all over again in the beginning of November. So we wanted to keep them open, and we are fortunate that we had the county's support in being able to do that. And so we went to our partners and we said, how do you feel about 365? And they said, let's do it. And so they've continued to provide those services. What we've also found, it is a great place or meeting place for our street outreach teams to engage or re-engage and do follow-up with people that they've been working with. They've got Emmanuel and New Life have private areas where community providers, street outreach teams, or others can go in and push in with those services and provide supports to individuals. Sometimes it's a conversation and letting people know what resources are available, how to access them. Sometimes it's filling out referrals. You know that there's a lot of job interviews that happen, and I will let our captain of the Salvation Army speak on those specifics. So Josh, if you want to come up.
See if I can do this without all the great.
You can.
Well, it is a pleasure to have been invited to come and speak with you guys. Thank you for your investment in our community. Right, these are all issues that we're all trying to deal with together. And to accent Jillian and Josh's point, you know, we can't do anything alone, right? So having partnerships together. You know, it's not just about the Salvation Army. Thank you, Steph, for being here, right? From Emmanuel, New Life. You know, the whole point of this is continuance of care. It's building that trust that was mentioned. It's really giving our people a safe space, right? So about March of last year, when we were doing just Code Blue, just the winter months, it ended on April 31st. And so about March of last year, some of our people who were staying overnight would start asking my staff, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And that just speaks to the level of trust that's built over those 6 months. So the fact that we were able to continue this program running, you know, they're not going to find a good housing without a partnership to lead them there. A lot of our people are just not capable, I guess. They've not been trained, right? You don't know what you don't know. So to have you know, people like the street team and Jillian, and so dedicated to helping these people will assist them in getting placement, right? So our homeless, we've been calling it a collaborative, right? The homeless collaborative is us at night. We open our doors at 8 p.m. for people to come in, and they're gone by 8 a.m. And there's transportation to get them up to New Life, and they're there until, Steph, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, 3? 3 p.m. All right, I'm good. Until 3 p.m. And then at 3 p.m. they're taken over to Emmanuel for dinner. And the whole point of that is 24 hours a day there is a safe space. There is a place that's dedicated to them. It's personal relationship, right? And there are people that are there, there's security that's there for our safety, right? But there's also someone that's willing to sit down and have a conversation. And that's not oftentimes what they get out on the street, right? So just having dedicated people that's willing to walk them through the process of a job interview, of, these things are not okay to say in public. These things are not okay to do. You have to clean up after yourself and these kind of things. Having people dedicated to those conversations is very, very, very important. So what does it look like from our side of things? We at the Salvation Army, if you've not been there, over on State Street, we have a really, really nice gym with it's a beautiful facility. That gym it's a nice big space, and so every night we have our people come into the gym and they're checked. It's a low barrier entry facility, which means you're not allowed to bring in weapons or drugs because of other programs that happen there and because of the security of my staff, right? So those kind of things. Do you have to be sober? No, but you're not allowed to bring that stuff with you, right? So a low barrier entry facility means anyone is able to come. We don't do any kind of screening. We don't do any kind of checking databases. The only thing we do is a security check to make sure they don't have any blades, any firearms, or any drugs, right? So in order to stay safe, we have a number of security procedures in place. We have a security guard that's there every single night. I have 2 of my staff there every single night. We have cameras and we have fobbed entryways through the rest of the building so they can't wander, right? It's all about vision. You have to be able to see what's going on in order to stay safe, right? So a lot of our people that come to us, they come to us with their grocery cart or their wagon, but not much else, right? We're blessed to be able to retreat home and leave our stuff, our clothes at home. That's not the case for these guys, and so they bring all of their stuff to us, and our whole goal overnight is to provide 2 things. 1, a safe place to lay your head. 2, dignity as a human being. So when they come to us, we give them the opportunity to take a shower, a nice shower cleanup. We have all the what do you call them? Shampoo and deodorant and all that stuff. We have all of that stuff, toiletries, right? We have all of those hygiene products that we allow our people to use, generously provided by donations. So we give them that stuff and they can take it with them. They shower up. But not only that, we also provide the opportunity for them to do their laundry. That's something that's often not seen. But oftentimes those small things, give them dignity to be able to make different small steps later on, right? We do have a standard that we set at our building. Obviously no drugs or firearms or weapons or anything like that. But there's also a certain manner of speaking that we encourage people to use. You can't threaten people and these kind of things. We have a standard that we set at our building that's sometimes difficult for them to get to, but they do. They get there. And the hope that we're trying to provide is that they take that standard and apply it to other areas of their life, so that when we say things like, you got to keep your area clean, your stuff is moving into this person's area, that might apply to an apartment. You got to keep your apartment clean. You can't put your stuff in somebody else's walkway, those kind of things. It's all about small steps to greater impact, right? So I touched on a little bit of the services we provide for the night, right? It's mainly come in, lay your head down. We do have coffee and snacks. Occasionally there's a group that might come out and actually serve a meal. Granted, they're already getting a meal at Emmanuel, so double meals, I'm okay with that, right? But throughout the day, we can either shelter them or shuttle them up to New Life, or they're more than welcome to stick around in the area. We provide lunch every day of the week, every weekday. We provide a free lunch program. We also have our food pantry, and all of those things are just accenting services. Really, those daytime services are the heart of the Salvation Army. The warming center kind of became an accent to that, right? But a lot of our people that stay with us overnight, they come to our lunch program and everything as well, where we serve between 200 and 300 meals a day. So clearly people are hungry, right? So I spoke a little bit already about the hours. We do open our doors at 8 p.m. We have other programming that happens until 7, so that gives my staff about an hour to clean up, get ready, and then they're out of the building by 8 a.m., which allows us to continue on our daytime activities. The Salvation Army has now become a 24-hour facility. The capacity of the program, so we are only a 20-bed center, though. If we are consistently above 20 beds, I was told that we're getting close to licensing, needing to be licensed as a full-on homeless shelter instead of an emergency shelter. We don't have the spacing requirements for all of this because we have so many different things happening during the day. We can't dedicate our gym to being a full-on homeless shelter. That being said, there are other options if people come to us over 20, right, over that 20 capacity. The interesting thing, when we were pitched about the summer cooling center, is that what we're calling it? the summer cooling center. Julian and I had a number of conversations like, is it worth it, or are people actually going to stay? Because there's that standard that we set, right? And we thought like maybe because it's warm outside, they won't want to meet that standard and they'll be able to do whatever they want and sleep because it's warm outside, right? Interestingly enough, our numbers have not dipped that much. So we're still at about 18 beds per night right now. 20 is the max. During the winter months, the really, really cold, snowy, icy months, we hit 20 every single night. We have hit 20 in the summer as well, which that's something we didn't foresee. But it speaks to the heart of the problem, right? There's still a need out there. There is greater need coming up, right? We're at about 18 beds per night right now, and our individuals are starting to try to line up early because the word on the street now, this is the hot conversation between Steph and I, the word on the street now is they want to be able to save their spot for our shelter, right? Because what if they don't get a bed? What happens? Oftentimes if they don't have a bed, we call Jillian and we do our best to try to get them into a hotel when that's available, right? During the winter months, it's not always available, so what do we do, right? That's the question. That's why we're here. What do we do? Next slide. Yeah, so some of the challenges that we've had, sometimes when individuals are stuck in addiction, they don't want us to go through their stuff. For the safety of everyone involved, as well as the safety of my daytime programs, we have to go through their stuff, and so some of the challenges are confrontations, but all my staff are trained in de-escalation and conflict resolution, and so we haven't really had in the last year, I can think of one incident where things became more than just verbal, and in that incident it was able to be taken care of. We were able to get the police there, and nothing happened, which is a success, right? That is a challenge. Some of the other challenges are our cots keep breaking, so we need to get new cots. Staffing is always an issue. I have a pretty reliable staff. I have a great supervisor, but we're constantly looking for hour shift. It's kind of hard to find people to work 2 in the morning to 9:30 in the morning. I wouldn't want to do that. But we've been managing that pretty good so far. In terms of positive impacts, we have, as NERCL can attest to as well, we have so many success stories. There are the people who come every single night, right? You're going to have those. But then there are people who are often down on their luck, and they are looking for a way out. Just the other day, I got an email from an individual who spent the weekend in our services overnight, and he sent me an email thanking me, saying, look, because of you guys, I was able to be safe. Me and my wife, we came here, we're new to the area. We came here for a job that didn't pan out, and we're new to the area. I didn't know what to do. I had no place to stay. Thank you for helping me. I now have housing, and when I get on my feet, I want to come to you to volunteer. And I'm like, all right, Christmas is around the corner. My favorite story to tell, I'm not going to throw a name, but there's an individual who was 2 years ago. She stayed with us regularly in our center. She was there, Jillian knew better than me because it was I wasn't here yet, but it was probably a couple of months she was with us. And our services, as well as the other services, were able to help her get into stable housing. And then my first year running the warming center here, she was telling me her story during her job interview to work at our warming center. And to this day, she's been working for me for over a year now. Stable job, stable housing, because of these services that we're providing. That's a success story. That's why we're doing what we're doing. There are others that can tag onto that as well, right? Her goal, she told me during the job interview, was I want people to see that they know me. I've been there. I've slept next to them, you know. If I can do this, they can do it too. And that's the goal. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, is to get people on their feet. Self-sufficiency is the goal. Really, we want to work ourselves out of a job, right? Yeah, so just the snippet up there. As I mentioned, we've been averaging 18 beds per night in the summer months, which blows my mind, but it's a fact, right? We did get as low as, I think 7 was our lowest during the summer months, but 7 is still 7, you know what I mean? That's 7 people who needed a place to stay, so they were still with us. You know, 18 on average that's a lot. It's in the summer months when it's warm outside, 18 is a lot. So that's 18 individuals who we have a relationship with. We know them by name. We know what's going on, and we ask them the tough questions occasionally. When they come in, we ask them, look, we love you and everything, but why are you here? What can we do to help you get on your feet? And that's oftentimes when we can connect them with NERCL and some of the other places around. Because we're the nighttime shelter, right? We're not the people that walk alongside and connect them to job interviews and all of this stuff, but we can connect them to those people. Not being from Watertown, the most beautiful thing that I see about this community is that we're willing to work together. The city that I came here from was Cincinnati, and I was speaking about this earlier. Everything was so siloed. You know, I'm going to do my thing, you do your thing, but we're not working together. This community is incredible when it comes to working together. That collaborative, that homeless collaborative that we have, there was nothing like that in inner city Cincinnati. The fact that we have some organizations that are willing to work together and say, you know, I can't do this, but you're doing it. Can I send people to you? You know, that is a beautiful, beautiful testament to the willingness to address the issue. So thank you for being willing to talk, right? To be willing to address this issue instead of just turning a blind eye to it. Do I have another slide? No, I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. So I think these next slides are really going to talk about, Crystal is actually going to talk about the emergency housing and the things that we have through the Department of Social Services. So specifically hotel, motel, but also the support services that our district has been able to leverage through state programs.
Hello, good morning. So I oversee the emergency housing team. So when individuals present into our agency as homeless, we have a process that they must go through in order to be seen for placement. Because it is through social services, they would have to apply for temporary assistance. Some of the challenges that we encounter when we're looking at placement for individuals is we often have shortages of available temporary housing, especially those that are willing to accept DSS vouchers and or providers with supportive services. Behavioral issues, oftentimes there's mental health issues, substance abuse disorders, and trauma can often complicate placement. Unwillingness to leave their pets behind. We don't have facilities that will house individuals with pets. Now, service animals and stuff is a different situation, but oftentimes they're just individuals that have pets and they don't want to leave them behind. Fully understand. Also, placement for us is a multifaceted decision. We have to take a look at the individual, their needs. We also have to take a look at the program needs, and we have to look at what facility we're able to utilize that can house this individual in their situation. Coordinating access to school. So we want to make sure that our families that have children that are placed in temporary housing have access to school. They're able to get the transportation to and from school, and that they're also fulfilling that enrollment in the attendance. So if we have an individual that is placed outside of the city, but their kids are enrolled in say, Watertown district, we want to make sure that they're able to get that transportation. So sometimes it's coordinating with the schools, sometimes it's making sure that we're providing the transportation until we can get that into place. So it's coordinating that can be often challenging. Rising rent and property costs make it difficult for clients to transition out of temporary housing into permanent housing. Landlord reluctance or discrimination towards voucher holders or individuals with prior evictions or poor credit often make it difficult to transition out of temporary housing as well. Securing housing out of our temporary housing is just the first step. Maintaining it requires ongoing support, such as employment assistance, counseling, and life skills. Without adequate aftercare, they risk returning to homelessness. And we do have a pretty good recidivism rate. So we see individuals that will transition out of, we secure them permanent housing, they're not able to maintain, and they come back in. Eligibility. Because we're social services, we do have a lot of eligibility requirements, often complex eligibility requirements, but they're defined by state and federal regulations, guidelines. So temporary assistance has strict eligibility requirements and can be a lengthy application process at times. And it can also include funding streams and multiple agencies involved too. Navigating multiple agencies and programs, including employment and training, health services, mental health, and addiction treatment, can also come into the temporary assistance program. Lack of consistent communication. So we find that individuals that lack consistent communications, they may not have access to the internet, harder to look for an apartment. They may not have access to a reliable phone. Sometimes they have these Wi-Fi only phones or text now phones. It's harder for them to be able to do some of the things that we just take for granted. Also, a reliable mailing address. Without having a reliable mailing address, follow-up is very difficult. Even with the temporary assistance program, so if you do not have a mailing address and your mail is returned, that can often close your case. So now they're losing the ability to pay the rent based on the temporary assistance funds that they may had in place to pay for that. So it can be a very challenging eligibility process for them. Some of our temporary housing statistics, we currently utilize approximately 4 motel hotels in the area. We also have a domestic violence shelter. Right now and consistently through the summer, we have about 35 individuals. That includes approximately 6 families with 9 children. That number, even with the help of the cooling center, has not decreased over the summer. Oftentimes, prior to, when Jillian was talking, prior to 2022, we did see a significant drop in the summer months of housing individuals. There were times we may have only had a few in housing. Much more manageable from our perspective. However, even with all of these different things that are being implemented, the numbers are not going down. Numbers will drastically increase as the temperatures get colder. We can all understand why. We live up here in the North Country. So even though these sites, the cooling center, warming center, have been vital to the program, there's still a great need. DSS has put into place some preventive and support measures for individuals that have been placed into temporary housing. I think that might be the next slide. Yes. We have a family-centered case manager on staff now that works with our temporary housing program. They are primarily focused with our families, so engaging those at-risk families or families that may be already into our temporary housing program. the homeless families residing in hotels and motels, families facing evictions, and families eligible for a program through temporary assistance called 100% income disregard. So some individuals that qualify for this, it's only a 6-month program, so trying to transition them off to be able to utilize their own funds to pay for their own rent. The referrals are done mostly through our emergency housing team. So our emergency housing team enters a family into housing. We get that automatic referral going to our family center case manager. She then works very closely with that family to see what their barriers are, help them navigate the temporary assistance application process. Also, she would start helping them fill out applications for apartments, helping them look for apartments, maybe providing transportation, maybe getting them a food box, different things like that, trying to get that family stable so that they can be successful when they get permanent housing. Some of the challenges that she faces right now is families that are not eligible for subsidized housing often then have to look for private landlords. But then when you're looking at a private landlord, they're looking at rental history. If you've been evicted from subsidized housing, it makes it very hard. Also, the wait list for sometimes for the subsidized apartments can be lengthy as well. So during that time, they're still in temporary housing, you know, just waiting for the next apartment to open up. Private landlords sometimes are hesitant or reluctant to work with individuals that are receiving social services. Often a stigma that's kind of associated with it. Clients not having the additional funds for payments for background checks or even application fees. So that can be quite a barrier if the landlord is not willing to, you know, kind of waive that fee or work with the client. Having poor credit and obviously a history of evictions makes it extremely tough. Also having insufficient rental history. So maybe not poor rental history, but having just insufficient. Maybe you haven't rented very often. Maybe you're young and this is your first apartment. You've, you know, down on your luck and you found yourself into our temporary housing program. How do you get into an apartment if you don't have any rental history? So sometimes that can be a barrier as well. In addition to the family-centered case management, DSS has put into place and secured some specialized grant programs through our SAFE and STEP programs. They assist individuals that are facing evictions. It can also help with securing affordable housing. It can also help with security deposits and can provide the case management to assist in retaining that permanent housing. This is outside of the temporary assistance process. Although we do have individuals that come into the agency, they have to apply for temporary assistance. We determine what program that they would be eligible for and what their needs are, and then can refer them to these other programs as well. I guess also some statistics. So right now, our family-centered case manager has helped with 25 households to date. And she's also made at least 15 different service and resource connections. So again, it's not only just housing individuals, it's also making these resource connections, maybe for employment and different things like that. The family-centered case manager has only been operating fully maybe since April. So it has been a huge help, especially to our emergency housing team, to assist with families.
So I think one of the way I can best bring this together for you right now is we talked about our cooling and our warming centers, the support services that can push into those centers, the street outreach teams, and then within the department, when we have people in emergency housing, we now have wraparound support services built in. That family-centered case management is a function through New York State. The districts are given that allocation on an annual basis to be able to provide that supportive service that was not otherwise built into your traditional emergency housing temporary assistance placements prior. So we're really providing those supports internally through our own placements at DSS, and we've now got the supports in place for those who are not placed in emergency housing. The theme here is supportive services are needed to allow people to maintain stability within housing. And again, I'm going to echo what I said earlier, that looks different for every single person. So having enough of the adequate types of housing that our community needs is an important piece. And so we've talked about all these services that are sort of boots on the ground, those low barrier options, those first steps, right? Then what? How do we bridge them to housing? We have housing options that exist in our community right now. How do we get access to some of those things? A couple examples up here of different ways. This single point of access, otherwise known as SPOA. A lot of those referrals are done for supportive housing options or other support services based on their individual needs. Coordinated entry, another avenue and path toward housing programs that provide financial assistance, rental assistance, as well as wraparound support services. The types of housing, we've got temporary transitional type housing within the community. Those come with typically up to 24 months or so, but they're intended to help build skills, self-sufficiency, and then move them on to a permanent housing setting. Rapid rehousing programs and permanent supportive housing programs. The rapid rehousing also with typically a 24-month expiration on that, but it is also providing that financial assistance and support services. It is considered permanent housing, so it is slightly different from a temporary or transitional setting in that capacity. Permanent supportive housing, as it stands, is a long-term housing support, and this is not meant to stop at that 24 months, so it can go beyond that. And it's typically going to assist families who are in need of those ongoing supports, who they've sort of reached their capacity and their abilities, and in order to remain stably housed, they do need some of those supports. And maybe that is, monthly case management check-ins, but that is still needed for them. And then the next slide. We work through various networks. The Points North Housing Coalition, this is an entity that is dedicated to looking at solutions to combat and end homelessness for people. A lot of the programs within our community, these housing programs, under my umbrella at DSS, we've got 2 of those permanent supportive housing programs, 2 of the rapid rehousing programs, and we're able to assist roughly about 130 households within those programs alone. Thrive Wellness and Recovery also has some permanent supportive and rapid rehousing through the Points North Housing Coalition. So this is a funding stream and a coalition that provides those supports that are necessary for people to be able to live independently to the extent possible. We look at affordable and subsidized housing options. If those are appropriate for people, we assist in the application process for those things. And the goal sometimes for those rapid or permanent supportive housing programs is that might be the next step. Help stabilize them, build those skills, and then move them on, freeing up some space in those other programs for us to bring on additional people. And working with our landlords. Crystal talked about sometimes landlords not willing to work with this particular population, or those who are engaged with DSS because of some of the stigma or some of the regulations and restrictions that DSS is bound to through the state. We're constantly working with landlords to develop that relationship, and what we have found is by maintaining that relationship, by being connected and providing those support services, we are building that relationship with the landlords. They are willing to work with this particular population. We can help mitigate some of those things for the individuals, and we do see those positive outcomes. This by no stretch of the imagination is an easy population. They come with challenges, they have barriers, but we are dedicated to helping manage and work through those things with them, with our broader community. We've developed great relationships with a lot of private landlords and property management companies, and we're going to continue to do that. Go to the next slide. And then sort of to bring this back, so I started out in the beginning back in 21, and we talked about needing, more types of housing. We, at that time, there was some, concepts, or there were some ideas and some rough plans for bringing some additional adequate housing online. And now we fast forward to 26 and 27, and we are seeing some of those thoughts and plans come to fruition. By 2027, we will be seeing an additional 200 units within our community of supportive housing. That is in combination with Thrive Wellness and Recovery and Neighbors of Watertown, who's got that beautiful and very quickly built building going up over on Main Avenue. I believe it's early 26 that one should be opening. And then you may have also noticed the Commerce Drive construction that is going on across from the post office. That is also going to be an additional 120 units of supportive housing for our community. These are programs that are intended to assist a particular population who are facing the challenges that are impacting our homeless population. So homeless populations are not suffering from mental health and addiction or affordability issues. They have all of those things. They just also happen to be homeless at the same time. And so these types of housing programs can assist them by having those built-in supportive services for them on hand. Sometimes it's transportation. It's a huge barrier for folks. And so those types of things can be built into these housing models, helping people move along forward. So we have come a long way, even though sometimes it may not always feel like that, but things are often a slow go, especially when you're trying to implement new programs, new policies, leverage programs and resources and funding streams that are out there. Those are not always easy. Working in government, we move slowly. So when we're leveraging those things through government entities, they happen slowly sometimes, but they are happening, and that's exciting. And it is exciting when we see things that we've been planning or talking about for a few years finally coming to fruition to better our community, and that is the entire goal. I think we are done. Thank goodness.
This is the fun part, Q&A. This is the opportunity for you all out there to ask some questions of our panelists. We're going to have some good open discussion here. Kayla, you just going to use that microphone to walk around? Okay, so Kayla's going to walk around with a microphone. Do you have a question? Yep, we'll just begin right there. You just raise your hand, and I'll call on you one by one. So we'll start right back there in the corner.
Good morning. I'm Susie Renzi-Falge. I'm the Executive Director of Flower Memorial Library in Watertown. I wanted to make kind of everyone in the room available of how we can supplement what you're already doing, and oftentimes we are supplementing it, and then I do have some questions. The library offers, everything that we offer is free to you, including care kits, which is an initiative by the North Country Library System. So what's a care kit? It's free for anyone who comes in and asks for it. It's filled with a variety of things, including toiletries, socks, hats, gloves, a gift card to a laundromat. We also have we partner with Happy Period North Country. We provide free menstruation products to anyone who needs them. That's right at your public library. We also write grants often to help the economically disadvantaged individuals in our community, and this includes a recent partnership with Cornell. We're doing something called Budget Bites, and you come in for a free cooking class, a nutrition lesson, and you go home with a bag of groceries. Library cards are free. It doesn't matter if you have an address or not. We also offer resume help. We have Wi-Fi and free computers for folks who are trying to either pay bills or get jobs. We have playrooms for children, for families. We are also, all libraries are warming and cooling centers during the day and in the evening hours when we're open. We also have something called the Family Computer Room. So if you are a family trying to, pay your bills, apply for a job, do a Zoom meeting, you don't have childcare, we actually have a safe space, a room where you can go in and close the door, and there are actually toys and other activities in there that your children can play safely while you are attending to business. All of this at the public library. So my question is, the street team and the Salvation Army specifically, we partner with a lot of non-for-profit organizations when we do tabling events at the library. And what that is you would come in and you would tell the community what you're offering. And this is important because we deal with a lot of the unhoused population. Happy to do that. But I think if you could come in at some point, maybe set up a table, an information booth, and help reach these people as they're coming in and out, I think that would be really awesome for the Watertown area. The more we can keep, the police out of it, the better. It's not always that simple, but the more that we can connect people with resources and help, the more that we're happy to do that. And so, again, the public library is also here as a supplement. If you need us, you can call us. If you have flyers that you can give to us that we can distribute to individuals, we're always happy to do that too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Susie. I know we had another question, right? Yep, right there.
Hi, my name is Chandler from Cluster Care. Having lived and worked in about 7 countries, I'm trying to understand the global perspective in terms of homelessness. According to what I believe, the main 2 reasons are relationship and employment. If I were to ask that question according to what you're all thinking, which one of the 2 is more difficult for the coming generation? Because as we know, relationships, whether it's personal or business, is getting tougher and tougher, maybe toughest, I would say. And employment, of course, is a known problem for many decades. But between the 2, which one do you think is the most important problem or priority for us to handle as it?
Any of our panelists want to tackle that question? I think it is.
Yes.
Not sure.
You have to say.
You might have to say. It's on.
Okay, it's on. So just to recap, make sure I understood the question. You're asking what our thoughts are on what is more important, building that relationship or looking at employment? Is that what I understood it to be?
Well,
I could totally miss the mark.
Yeah. In today's world, relationships are tougher, and employment is also very tough. Okay, and that is, I think, are the main reason for homelessness as a problem. There could be more issues which are the reason for homelessness as a problem. So between the 2, which one do you think is more difficult for the coming generations of next gen and so on, so that we can prevent homelessness as a problem?
It's a good question. It's a tough question. I certainly think that there is weight and factors for each of those 2 areas. Relationships are tough this day and age. Over the last several years, the technology has increased. COVID certainly set things back in terms of building relationships. It sort of separated people for a while. It kind of became the new norm. And that certainly also ties into employment. Employment for people who are struggling with relationships or maybe even communication skills, that's tough. If you can't do that, they're going to have a tough time engaging and getting meaningful employment for themselves. So I think, and I don't really want to speak fully on the employment side because there's certainly other experts on that, but I would anticipate that those types of organizations who assist people with resume building or interview skills are probably seeing those as common things. I don't know if one is more impactful than the other, but I certainly think that they are tied to each other and go hand in hand, and you can't silo them exclusively from one or the other. Any other comments?
Other questions out there? Anyone? Don't be afraid. See that?
A question, but it's more just letting you know that we are available. I'm Jenna. I'm the housing director at Watertown Commission. So we have function 9 to 4:30 every day. We use it as a safe haven. We have daily bags, which is for our homeless. If they're homeless, they can come in and leave a bag there for them so that they can have nutrition throughout the day. We
Thank you very much. See a question over here, Kayla?
I don't need the microphone. I got a pretty good mouth.
It's more for TV than anything. Yep.
So before I get to my question, Lance Snowfell, I work for veterans. Ben and I are up here with the North Country Regional Team. So even though we specialize in veterans, certainly we found many veterans in this circumstance. So my question is, sadly, the group just above these folks that we're concentrating on today, my question is, are they going to raise the federal guidelines for the poverty? Like, so the measuring stick most of organizations use is around $14,000, and then you start hearing over income as a disqualifier. Well, I work with veterans in that circumstance, and it's especially hard to assist that group of people. You know, my goal is always to stop the descent. Like, I don't want them to hit rock bottom before I can help them, right? So I guess the question is, given how the economy, everybody can unanimously agree, inflation, it doesn't seem like the federal guideline for poverty has gone up. Is it, maybe I'm working on old information, but it was right around 14,000, correct? I mean, I understand there's mitigating things, number of dependents, medical bills. I know there are factors, but as a general number, it was extremely low. And so if you were just above that, it didn't really take the suffering away that you were just above that, right? So I work in that space a lot. Is why I asked the question. So are they going to raise it? Do you know?
I wish I had that crystal ball. Unfortunately, I don't. And I think that the climate that we're in right now with our federal government, our state and local governments, there's a lot of unknowns. We've seen that those poverty guidelines, they do shift here and there. Those are certainly set by the federal government based on a number of factors. And predicting the fluctuations in those is not an easy thing to do. And just like you, down at the local level, at the nonprofit level, we kind of just sit and wait for those sort of things to come out. And when they do, we pivot and we move forward with the new requirements that we have under us or over us.
I mean, not putting you on the spot. You might have some advance notice that I don't. I was kind of hoping you'd say, yeah, no.
I am not on that list, sir.
Well, it's hard to look somebody eyeball to eyeball and say, geez, I'm sorry, you're over income. They're not feeling like they're over income at that moment. And,
yeah.
It's just a tough space to be.
We certainly have those kinds of conversations. I don't want to speak for these guys, but I think pretty confident that they have those kinds of conversations. Another conversation that we often have is, you know, we talked about leveraging different programs, resources, funding streams, whether it's through the federal government, the state governments. They all have different regulations. They all have different requirements. And so what somebody might be eligible for versus not, sometimes you have to look and say, you know what, you're not eligible for this. And it sounds bad, but you're not quite the right kind of homeless. That sounds terrible, right? But it's a regulatory thing based on our funding streams. And if we want to leverage those things to be able to bring them into our community, we do have requirements that we have to follow, but that's why leveraging as many resources as we can and hopefully braiding those kind of programs together is going to move us forward.
And some of those cases come over because the VA has some resources, but what a lot of people may find surprising from a benefit standpoint, eligibilities differ dramatically due to how much time in service, your character, discharge, and many other things. People think it's kind of carte blanche. Everybody that's a veteran is just magically eligible for all of it. I wish it was that simple. It would make my job much easier. So like the HUD bash and things, sometimes they just don't qualify. So then they have to kind of come to the civilian resource side of things. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate the answer. I wish you knew.
Thank you. Question right up here.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Waterhouse with Thrive Wellness and Recovery. A couple questions. First one that came, maybe for Captain Josh. You feel your capacity, you know, with the upcoming winter closely approaching, will be able to meet those needs? For
know, the 20 people that can stay in our center, I mean, we'll do our best to meet those needs. Our numbers show us that there are far more homeless than 20 people. And
Absolutely.
what can we do about that? That's a great
I
question.
guess, and a part two of that is, are there things being looked at that kind of can expand capacity, if you will, if those numbers grow like that and we have a much larger issue this coming winter than maybe we did the last one?
Yeah,
Our discussions with
unfortunately,
the people that are already working on the issue.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our building, because of all the daytime activity, there's just not a lot we can do in terms of growing our capacity. There's not a space that's solely just used as our warming center space or our shelter space. That space doubles as where we serve food during the day. It's where our kids play during our kids programs on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. It's a space. It's a multi-purpose space, and because it's not designated for warming center, 20 is the max that we can do efficiently.
Is there anything, maybe a question for either Jillian or that, we looked at as backup plans or alternates if it really, the capacity really stretches out?
So currently, what we, the process, and I think Josh mentioned earlier, if they're at their capacity and someone comes to their doors and they don't have a place to stay there because they're at capacity, they're not making them go away, they're not shutting their doors, they're allowing them in, they're giving them that hot cup of coffee and maybe a snack, and they're also assisting them with calling our DSS after hours line, where we can connect with, not my team, but Crystal's team, on an after hours placement into a hotel or motel. So that is that fallback option at this point in time when they do reach their capacity. So we're fortunate to have that option for people to not be immediately turned away with nowhere to go. And the Salvation Army staff are great about calling our after hours line to make that connection to a safe, warm shelter for that night.
Thank you. I had another one. This is for Josh with Miracle. You've been operating since December of 24. Are there trends you're seeing that maybe we haven't been catching with the homeless population that we're missing and we could be better at?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the data, and I think Jillian probably has some of it too. It's consistent. The numbers are consistent. It's not going down at all. But I'd probably have to look at the data to tell you what those trends are. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Questions? Sorry, go ahead.
One other thing to touch on. As far as our emergency housing, we are staffed 24/7, including holidays. So when an individual maybe presents, like Jillian said, to the warming center, they can reach out to us. Also, they can go to Samaritan. Samaritan has a connection to us. They can also go to the public safety building that will also have a connection to us in order to get that housing. There's a small screening that we go over with them on the phone. Also, because it gets cold here in upstate New York, we do have Code Blue or executive order in place so that we're not allowing those individuals to remain on the streets in 35 and below weather.
Right there. Yep.
Me again. How do you guys keep track of statistics for Jefferson County, and how could we get a hold of specific statistics so that we can do our jobs better? For instance, I just asked Lance, do we know the percentage of veterans that are currently unhoused? Do we know how many are, single mothers with children? How many are single men? How many are whole families? And who do we reach out for those statistics, and how often are they collected?
Great question.
I didn't know, by the way. She didn't want to say that, she's kind, but I didn't know. The veteran piece of the exact number.
So there's with any of our funding streams, whether allocations or grant funding, there's reporting that is required, and a lot of them all require that type of information. Veterans specifically is a subset that is pulled out for particular reporting purposes. So it'll ask for our overall population, and they'll say, of those, how many are veterans? That is a subset for a lot of our state-funded programs that we have. Lots of spreadsheets is how we're collecting data, but I And for our county in particular, that is information that we are putting into one sort of data set to see this homeless population over time. But we are able to pull out pieces of that. Currently, it's sort of in a version 1 right now, since it's, I'm going to say go live, but it's not actually a go live. We're sort of testing where it's at right now, working out some of the bugs, adding in a few other data elements, and then some filter options so that we can say, okay, of the 100 people, give or take, that we've got here right now, how many are veterans? How many are domestic violence survivors? So on and so forth. So we can set those sort of filter options because, again, the entire purpose of this data dashboard is to allow our community to put meaningful and impactful solutions and policies forward without having to miss the mark. It doesn't make sense to put resources in place for something that you can't actually see a target for. And so that's really what this is doing. There's a lot of systems that are used, again, to sort of collect data based on the program type, the regulations under it. And so we're leveraging sort of all of those systems into a data dashboard that's going to allow us to really pull that information to the best of our ability to measure it a little bit more closely.
Julie, will that information be readily available like on your website and public, or will there be reports available to check in on those? I realize you probably can't have that open all of the time.
Yeah, I don't believe the intention is for it to be out there for public viewing on a website. Right now, it's going to be, for county purposes, we meet with the city of Watertown leadership, occasionally to kind of get a handle on where things are, make sure that our priorities and our responsibilities are aligning, so the information and reporting comes out or can be used in those capacities. I think that as we continue to roll out that dashboard and we continue to work out some of the bug fixes within it, we will be able to expand the use of it in the reporting pieces. And certainly we want to be able to use it for partnerships, for other community resources who are looking to leverage some funding. So, you're looking for grant funding and you need to be able to provide why it's needed for you. This could be utilized in that capacity and say, this is what our community has been able to find. This is how many veterans, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it could be used in that capacity, but it'll continue to evolve as we evolve the technology of it.
Other questions? Don't be shy. Oh, you're right there.
Hi, good morning. My name is Crystal Valley. I actually work with a lot of the churches here locally and actually across New York State. This has been very informative from my perspective, and as far as volunteers that I try to elicit to help in this situation on a regular basis with the cold flu kits, or just coming to volunteer and be a listening ear, as well as just somebody who cares. So I have a lot of people from these churches that are interested in helping, and it's very, very good to hear, like Josh, with I don't know if you need teams of people to volunteer even with these people, because I have people from churches that are actually, telling me, oh, well, we want to go out on our own and help, and I get a red flag with that, because obviously we want to be working with people that are trained, in this. So I want to be able to connect people to that. So the two things that I have questioned is how do you engage more volunteers to get the information, even with Urban Mission, for example, or the library that, where you were just learning about as well. It's like, how do you get more people involved? Because I appreciate Captain Josh's comment too about coming from Cincinnati and realizing that our community here in Watertown has that relationship mindset, right, of building those relationships and helping to fight against this, to actually support these people to get back into society. Because I think that's a very important piece. But to your question as well, is like, who is working with the local businesses to actually set up like job opportunities intentionally, right? So these people that are going through these parts of the programs, and they're lengthy programs, right? But how do you get just that encouragement to the people to say, yes, there's job openings here, and we have people waiting for you. You know what I mean? To get back into society, to contribute, to do these sorts of things. So is there somebody in that piece, just kind of navigating that, or at least, pulling that piece together to encourage the local businesses even to understand that, they need qualified jobs, and yeah, I can understand their hesitancy with, just not knowing with people's backgrounds and trying to help all of that, but there's got to be a way to connect that more, to be able to have it more sustainable, right? So you're talking about people going through all these housing things, and then they're coming out and they're ending up back in homelessness. So really just building almost like a care team in a sense, right, to come alongside through that journey more effectively, if at all possible, right? This is a big, wish, right, for all of us, because we really, as far as caring and wanting to get these people back into society, we've all got to come together to do that collectively. And how can we make that more easier for people to do that, right? And not rely on our state system to just be fed and distributing money, and actually encourage them to stay in the situation that they're in. Because we all know as humans that we need to have, that contribution, right? That we need to know that we're, contributing to life and to society, and we have a part in that, and, everybody's created to do a piece of that, right? And we're in this community for a purpose, so I'm kind of going off on a bunch of different things, I realize that, but just because of the conversations that I've been having recently, and, the blocks of not being able to get people through the system quick enough. And if there's any way to, again, work with the two things, working with the local businesses to set up those entry-level jobs that we can get them back into society, get them feeling positive about what they're doing as a human being, right, to contribute for their families. A lot of the families, and with the rising costs, they're not able to support things. So instead of just, medicating this, just throwing kits and this and that, really getting more people involved, on a level where they can just relate, or have somebody to listen to them and really understand, and if it's a drug addiction, more people that can, just even volunteer to even talk about how they got there in the first place. Why did they end up, you know what I mean? Just a caring heart for people to just understand that, this community cares and wants you back into society. So is there a way to build in some type of network with the local businesses adding into this to say, yeah, we're already working with, Urban Missions Care Center, or, and we're bringing these people through it, or, available at the library where you can come in and work on your resume. Just things like that, because the other side of it too, which I understand, is the the willingness on their part, right, to want to do that. Because if the person doesn't want to do anything or change anything, they're not, they can't force them to do that either. So I understand that's the other side of this too, right? So I think, but the piece that's missing there is just encouraging them, listening to them, hearing their story, and knowing that there is really an out of getting back into society with jobs. We need people that are willing to provide entry-level jobs for these people when they're ready, and just highlighting that, I think, for our community would be huge, because, again, I don't know, I just wanted to put that out there for discussion, because I know through the churches that there's people that are willing to do that, have those conversations, and not just, continue the, cold blue kits and, the food and, all of that, because ultimately it would be ideal if we could come together to provide a solution, ultimately, to get them back into society.
I just wanted to comment on that, Kristen. You sound like a dreamer, and I appreciate that, your aspirations. Those things, I'm sure they can comment too. If there are people in the room, Stephanie was raising her hand with volunteer opportunities. Those things are happening throughout the community, and I think the point of today's room is to notice where those red threads are. Like, these things are happening, but it's just being aware of all of the different kinds of solutions, including the library, which is not one that always comes to mind. So just making sure those things, Cheryl's in the room with the workplace, that has jobs ready and available, I think each of the individuals in here would have some kind of story and tie into that. So it's really important to kind of continue to come together to notice where those things are happening. If you've got people, I'm going to give you Stephanie's card because she has some opportunities for folks to come in as well. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, one more. That's it.
So we're blessed to have the workplace. They do a great job. But because I work, well, many of us work with this population, it's hard to look for a job if you don't have housing, right? Like you have to have stable housing. So what fills the gap and what I think what you're talking about is some of us in the room that do case management, right? Because simultaneously I'm trying to help them find an entry-level job and a place to live to determine if it's on the bus route, because they don't have a car. Like there's a lot of reasons they're unemployable, a lot of barriers. You know, she does an amazing job and her whole staff. You know, I never turn on the news and don't see a job fair and, you know, Health and Garden Inn, come dressed to impress and bring your resume, you know. But we're talking about folks that have very special needs below that. If you don't have a place to live in a car, it's pretty hard to compete for a job. And, you know, most of us work in that environment. So case management is really what fills that void.
Rhetorical question, but we're talking about homelessness.
Yes.
How many of us are homeless right now?
It's what I was going to ask.
Exactly.
Funny enough.
Or have been there. Right? So think about it. When you're dealing with this problem, right? When we talk about veteran services, do we have zookeepers running it? Like, no, that would be awesome, but we have veterans, right, who have been there, who can identify that. The big deal between sympathy and empathy, right? So you can look at that from multiple different perspectives. Everybody can talk about churches, veterans, from all these wonderful organizations. I mean, I was listening to Captain Josh. You said you have 20 beds. There's double that standing in this room right now. And then look at the numbers of the people that are homeless or are soon to be with the government shutdown and soldiers, federal civilians not getting paid an entire month or two. The only other number I would add would be the number of people that are one mistake away from entering that. And look at that throughout the community. Have that conversation, right? So this has been wonderful, but you know, for the next time, anytime we're engaging with these issues that come across, you know, in the general scope, ask that critical thinking question. Has this happened to me? Right? Is it X, Y, and Z? Agriculture. What's the last one I think I went to? And we have people, you know, from the farms, dairy farms, explaining all this stuff. So, excuse me. Anyway, I just wanted to drop that on there and be like, hey. The other one too was, you said 02 to 9 a.m. I think was the hard shift to find.
Yeah.
Veterans. Got a lot of homeless ones.
I'll take them, send them over.
They would be there in a heartbeat. Heck, we're used to working long hours. There's plenty of them on drum right now. They're probably on CQ and staff duty, and that's 24 hours straight. So that's a unique example that we can help have people looking for that space. Right? They can add to security. So anyway, thank you. Just want to.
I think we have time for one, maybe, well, there's a couple more. We'll see what Kayla wants to do, but Cheryl.
Well, one is over at the workplace, we obviously, when people are looking for temporary assistance, are sent over to us for a program called Skills for Success. And we teach them resume, we teach them how to present themselves, and if any of you have ever taken the Bridges Out of Poverty, that you should do that so that you have an understanding. But then we also go to a program called Community Work Experience. We call it CWIP. It's designed to place these individuals so that they can build a resume. That's what it's for. It gets them needed skills, and they have to work off their benefit. But what's more importantly is the assault on our poor at the federal level. In 2 weeks, we have to do a program where individuals and homeless people are not exempt, veterans are not exempt, and individuals under the age of 64 will have to participate in 80 hours of work or volunteerism in order to maintain their SNAP benefits. And we all know that it is difficult for a homeless person. We deal with it every day, trying to help individuals. We can supply them some clothing. We can use other resources, but it is difficult. And some people do it. We have homeless people who are working. And so that is one of the biggest voices we need. Now, in another year, that's going to, we're going to have to look at Medicaid recipients. And so these are important issues that we cannot overlook, because how many homeless people are going to lose SNAP benefits in the next 3 months? And so but we're not seeing any exemptions. The only exemption is somebody who is disabled. And so these types of programs are important, but we've got to be a voice. We have to be a voice for those vulnerable people in our community that need us. And that's my
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. What do you think, Hal? Maybe one more? Yeah? Another. And one more question. I saw a couple hands that popped up right before. Right there.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Wilder. I'm the Regional Business Liaison with Next Move New York. So just like Clear Paths, we are very oriented around the military community. And our specific role is to help get transitioned soldiers, spouses, and veterans into meaningful careers here in the community. So ultimately, New York State, the North Country, we always know somebody who's moving out of here, but not a lot of people that are coming in here. And so I definitely wanted to put it out to DSS, Miracle, and the Salvation Army that, you know, we are actively trying to help get our candidates of the military out into the community, and especially like security guards. That is a very big position, and like Lance and Ben said, they are working shifts that are absolutely insane. So something from 2:30 till 9 a.m. They're like, wow, this is nice. So I would definitely love to connect with you guys. We do have a job portal coming out soon, and it is free for all North Country employers to use. And it's ultimately going to help strengthen that pipeline between the North Country and Fort Drum, so they're not just in that little bubble anymore. So I just wanted to put that out there, and also out to all of our community members too. So thank you for bringing that up, guys, because the veteran community is very important. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it, everybody. So I want to thank everybody, first of all, for coming here today. It was really nice to see all of you here today. I want to thank our sponsors one more time, Jefferson County Economic Development, Empire Facility Management, Knowlton Technologies, Jefferson Concrete, and, of course, Watertown Savings Bank as well. This is a great discussion. Does everyone feel like they learned as much as I did today? I learned so much out of this discussion, and from somebody that's in the news that gets this stuff every day. This is phenomenal. This is the type of thing that we need to have, and my biggest takeaway is the need for our community to come together to do this. This is a community effort. Without it, the problem doesn't get solved. Thank you to all of our panelists here. I want to thank, of course, Jillian, Crystal, and both Joshes for coming here today. You guys were all phenomenal. Great info. The background of how we got here, just phenomenal information that I think a lot of people don't realize, and it's so important to understand how we got where we were today. Josh from Miracle, some of those statistics that you put up blew my mind. The amount of times that it takes sometimes to talk to an individual over and over again, and the amount of times that there's failure to get to a success, that's a lot of work. And I think the community doesn't understand.
I think it needs to be pointed out too that that's just the amount of times they talk
Sure.
to an individual.
Yeah, you're right.
There are several times that they'll be at our location just going around
Yeah.
just so they can get used to their face and stuff. It's a long, ongoing process.
There's so much work being done behind the scenes, and I think, could we all agree that there's a lot of folks out there that think that nothing is being done on this situation? I challenge you to read anytime 7 News puts out a story on homelessness that goes on Facebook, look at the comments sometimes. There's a lot of people out there that don't think that there's a lot being done, and there is so much being done all the time. And it takes all of you, and it takes all the community to do it too. Captain Josh, the partnerships that are necessary to come together for this, absolutely huge. I love how you're helping to create some self-dignity in the community. That's so important. I'll tell you right now, just putting on a suit, I walk around a little bit taller. It's the truth. It's so important. Crystal, the struggles, the amount of barriers within that community and within the rest of the community. There are barriers everywhere. And it takes a community to do this over and over and over again. And it takes these kind of discussions. I encourage everybody in this room to keep talking and to talk to others. Keep that discussion going and encourage them to have discussions, meaningful discussions about this topic. I feel very positive coming out of this discussion with all of you today. So I want to thank everybody here for all their comments. I learned a lot. I want to invite everybody to the next chamber event. These are great events. All these chamber events, I encourage you to go to them. We learned so much at them. Business After Hours is coming up. It's going to be at the brand new Ashley Furniture Store. That's right in the Salmon Arm Mall, gorgeous store. 5 to 7, it's this coming Wednesday, so obviously not yesterday, but next Wednesday. Networking happens at these events. They're great. They have delicious food. There's a cash bar, and you can win some great prizes. So check out that next Business After Hours. A reminder to vote daily for Business of the Year awards. They're going to be celebrating all the nominees at a special awards night. That's going to be on November the 19th, so mark your calendar for that. It's going to be at the brand new The Strand. I don't know if anybody's been to the new Strand yet. Gorgeous remodeling Liv did on there. Winners will be announced there live. Tickets are very limited, so there's a QR. Where's the QR code? It's right up there in front? Okay. Scan that QR code on your way out, and you can save your spot. Thank you all again for coming today. It's good to see you all. Have a great afternoon, everybody, okay?